Hi, I'm Chantel with 141 Design Company, and in this tutorial, we're going to fully finish the punch needle pattern Create Every Day by Teresa Kogut. The pattern can be found in Teresa Kogut's Etsy shop. It is a PDF download and comes complete with instructions on how to get started with punch needle. I've done two versions of it, one with our hanger oval version as a full finish using rainbow colors and finishing off with a cording matching the border. There's also a version without the hangers on the top. We'll be using this one today. And both of these are available in our chantels141.com website. We're going to get started with painting our oval first. We'll go ahead and paint the edges of the piece, and then we'll paint it using the layered linen technique and these 3 shades of white from the DIY paint line. I've chosen the colors Vintage Linen, White Swan, and Beadboard to blend together for a great tone-on-tone look. I'm also using a chip brush to paint this, and that can be found in our Amazon shop. I love the way the DIY paint covers the edges of the laser burn. It's fantastic coverage. We're going to paint that edge first. That way I can hold it in the middle as I go all the way around and paint the edges. Then I'm going to clean off the little bits that kind of came over the edge just so we don't have that extra bump along the edge of it, and paint the entire thing with one coat. You can start with any of these 3 colors. We're going to blend them all together and layer them on top of each other. I just like to have one solid base coat before I get started with the layering technique. The key to the layering is actually this brush. The bristles on the brush are very coarse. It's not the best brush if you don't want to see brush strokes, but in this case we do want to see them because we're going to utilize them in order to create the texture that I like to call the vintage layered linen. We're going to drag it back and forth, vertically and horizontally across the oval. As you're doing this, I like to let it set for just a little bit to let it dry so that when I pull through, it will create texture. We're taking the second color now just to create some height and applying it kind of thick and clumpy, if those are terms, across the entire thing in a patchy pattern. You can see I'm adding quite a bit along the edges because I know that's going to be the part that shows the most. I'm going to hit it with the heat gun because this is very thick in these areas, and I want to just put, I guess, what I would call a skin over the top of the paint, because I'm going to drag the brush back through that, and it will just, again, create more texture as it pulls through the half dry, half wet paint. You can see it's kind of drying just on the top because underneath it's still wet. So I'm going to drag my brush back through this now, and you can see I'm creating those drag lines and some fabulous texture. It almost looks as if we've created the slubs in the linen if you were looking at an actual linen piece of fabric. I'm going to go ahead and dry that again so that I can set those little clumps in place. And then we're just going to continue the process. I do knock a little bit of the paint off each time so that it's more of a dry brushing technique across the top of the board than just painting. I'm just kind of hitting the top of my bristles on the board as I drag it through the paint once again. Again, creating the linen look is all from going back and forth in a crosshatch motion. And even though these are 3 shades of white, you can definitely see the color differences in them, giving us depth. We'll dry it a little bit more. I'm using a heat gun, but a hairdryer works as well. This might actually be a little too hot, but it's working for us today. And let's just keep layering the paint colors. As you see me tapping my brush onto the paper, I'm just offloading a little bit of paint if I felt like I have too much on my brush. Get that bristle out of there. The chip brushes do tend to shed a little bit. But since we're working with texture, we're going to let that happen anyway. So we'll just keep layering. This color looks really cool as it hits the high points on the texture we've created with the paint. Again, I'm focusing mostly on those edges because I know that's the parts that are going to show the most. But I do paint the entire board. It just gives me the consistency of, you know, just going through the entire motion and getting a nice overall look before we layer our piece on top of the paint. This is starting to look really good. It's coming together very quickly. Chalk paint dries very fast, so it's easy to get this done. We'll dry the entire piece, so we'll be ready to distress it. Oh, look at the end result. That is all that fabulous texture. See how it looks just like a piece of linen? I just love that so much. Now we're going to distress our edges, and I've got this handy dandy sanding tool that is also available. It's linked in the description box below. I've got my Amazon shop there. So the tools I use, I usually put in that shop so that you can go and grab them if you need them in your stash. And I am using the fine grit, the finest grit that is available in the kit. It's more than likely a 220 grit sandpaper, so that I don't just create a lot of sanding marks in my piece. I just want to kind of burnish and sand. But the DIY paint distresses very nicely. It's very easy to distress without ripping or tearing. I'm going along the entire edge to clean up. You can see where the paint kind of went over the edge, and it's a little bumpy, but look at that. It just comes right off like an eraser almost. And we can smooth that right out. And then I will go through the edge as well slightly because I like to see that darkness of the edge pop through the paint. I'll also clean off the back. Sometimes I'll paint the backs and sometimes I leave them. If it's a very large piece that you're doing, I definitely recommend painting both sides. It will stabilize the board. Once we're finished and satisfied with our distressing, let's go ahead and burnish the entire piece and wipe off all that excess dust. Then it's ready for finishing. I've got two different types of finishing. I did clean off the entire back and I've got my entire piece dried and lint free. I do like to use this brand, but today we're going to use the liquid patina from the DIY paint line. This can be used as a decoupage medium or as a top coat. It does dry clear and we can brush it on. It's also something with zero VOC, so it is safe to use indoors without all those icky smells. And when I have something that's just a flat surface like this, it's very easy to apply. Just take a brush and brush over the entire piece. And now we've set the paint. Once that dries, our oval will be ready for our punch needle design. Ugh, looks fantastic. It's all dry. So let's prepare the punch needle piece. Again, I did one using the hanger version and I used cording that I put all the way around the extra as the hanger on that. But we're going to finish this one today on the non-hanger version, just the regular oval. I did punch this using rainbow DMC colors, and then I used cording all the way around in the same DMC color that I used as the background. The cording can be made using a Krynic tool. We're going to use the combination of this, the tacky glue, and we're going to grab our scissors. We're going to also use an iron here as we get ready to go. We'll set that aside for just a moment, but first let's cut off the excess that we have on our weaver's cloth around our design. We're going to cut it about, I think that's about 1/2 inch all the way around. I went ahead and traced an oval so that I could eyeball that and cut around and cut this excess off. And once we've trimmed the entire piece, we're going to then come around the entire edge again and snip in. Don't cut your loops, be careful there, but just snip in to about 1/8 of an inch away from our design. That way we can pull this back and glue it to the back side. It'll just make it a lot easier and less bulky if we allow ourselves these little snips in the fabric. We'll go all the way around. Looks like they're, I don't know, about 1/2 inch apart maybe. Again, I'm just eyeballing this. Once we've done that, we're going to now pull each one of these back. But to get us started, this is where that iron is going to come in. I'm going to go ahead and press them back first and then go around and glue them down. So I'll just take my iron and press them in. I'm not using any steam. I'm just using the tip of this hot iron to kind of, set them back, set them in place. We don't want a lot of bulk back here. So we're going to try to get them, nice and even all the way around. Now we're ready to go ahead and take our Aleene's tacky glue. This is just the glue I'm using for this. There's a lot of other fabric glues and things. This one works pretty good. And just lift each one of those tabs up, apply a little glue, and press them back down. By having them ironed, it just kind of helps, you know, with keeping them all in place, I guess. I don't know that it's a necessary step. I just like the crispness of that ironed edge now for just lifting up and adding a little glue and then back down into place. I feel like I'm not struggling with it now while I'm using the glue. Now you could let that completely dry, but we're going to go ahead and apply it right to our board. And with doing that, I am using the Quick and Thick. You can use the Aleene's here as well, but I'm going to grab the Quick and Thick Titebond glue that I have in my stash. I use this for my wood products, but it is an all-purpose crafting glue as well. Just going to go around the entire edge. It is a fast setting glue, so it'll get our piece bonded to the board quickly. I'm kind of pushing that in because I don't want that part, you know, the extra, to kind of spooge out from the edge out onto the board where we'd be able to see it. And then you could measure from side to side, but I think I'm just going to go ahead and eyeball this right into the center of our oval and center it inside. That's looking pretty good. And then we'll kind of press it down, making sure we've got it adhered around the entire piece. There's a fancy measuring system here. I just marked the edge of that scissor with my thumbnail, and it looks like we've got it good on either side. Fantastic. Some extra fuzzies. And now I know I've been kind of mushing this around, so I'm just kind of leveling out some of my everyday. It's a little wonky. I'm still learning. Now let's get that cording all the way around. Now, like I said, I created this cording using the same DMC color that is the entire background of the Create. So it's going to give us a border, but it's also going to blend right into the border and not, you know, really pop out. It's just going to be a nice finishing touch. To get started all the way around, we're going to start with the folded end of the cording here. You can see that's the folded end. Over the other end, I've got it knotted. And we're going to glue this down. You can glue it with a hot glue gun, but I'm not the best with the hot glue guns. I mean, I don't burn myself or something, but as far as getting it exactly where I want it, I tend to get too much glue all over the place. So I'm going to go back to the tacky glue and get started over here in this corner. I'm just going to pull my loops back. And to start this, I'm not going to start it right at the tip. Let me add some glue right in here, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to lay the cording down just like this in the middle, but I'm going to let, probably about three quarters of an inch, maybe an inch, like hang off of there. I'm not gluing that whole end down, if that makes sense. I'm going to let that kind of hang on the end, and you're going to see why when we get all the way around to the meet these up. That's just going to help us bury one end into underneath the punch needle and connect them together so that we've got, you know, a really nice seam when we finish off going all the way around the punch needle with this cording. Again, we're just going to continue that process. I'm pulling the loops up a little bit, just using the tips of these little craft scissors. Pulling those back. applying a little glue and just kind of laying the cording right down into the glue. The glue will dry clear, but I'm trying to keep it, I'm trying to keep it off of my punches as best I can, off my loops. I don't want to make a big mess with it. That's why I'm kind of lifting them up so I can kind of lay the cording alongside it. I'm really just mostly framing it, and I'm also covering up where you can see the weaver's cloth here. The tool I used to create this cording is also listed in the Amazon shop. It is a Krynic tool. And it really makes creating cording in any color that you want just really easy. I have to go check that out. You see, I'm just really gently pressing that into the glue. Getting ready to meet these two ends up, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to finish that off. So right where they're going to meet, I'm going to tie it off with this extra piece of floss so that when I snip it, it doesn't unravel. And I'm just going to lay these down and eyeball where I think they're going to meet together and tie it off right here. There we go. Trim that little bit off. And now if you want to use the extra, for instance, if you're making the version with the hangers and you want to use the extra on your cording as your, hanger for the piece, take the floss and tie it again just about, quarter of an inch away from the first knot that you put in there. And we're going to snip it off between these two places where we tied them off. That way when you cut it, you've got one piece you can use later to create your hanger. You can save that extra end without it unraveling on you. So we're going to cut right between where we just put those two ties in, where we knotted it off. There we go. And now we can set this aside and use it if we're making the hanger version. Use that for later. See how I did there? And then just pulled it through and then knotted it again. But we're going to finish this part now off and kind of bury this end and then meet the two ends together, I guess. Get rid of any extra. And then keep gluing that down. And as we get to the end, we're going to tuck that little bit. It's a little bit longer than I wanted, but we're just going to go with it. We're going to tuck it underneath the punch needle. Just pull that back just a little. We don't want a lot of bulk underneath there, but we're going to just kind of lay the end underneath there to hide it, to tuck it in. And we'll tuck this behind our punch needle. And it's just a little maneuvering and, fiddling with it. until we get it laid out nice and smooth and we've got our ends blended. Okay, I'm gonna just adjust things and continue to glue down, and we're gonna lay that, see how we started? You know, we didn't start right at the tip, so that way we can come now and put the glue in and lay this part down to meet up with the end of it and blend them together so that we can disguise where they met up. And you have a nice consistent cording look all the way around your oval. At this point, I would go back around and maybe just kind of got some glue on there. I'll get that cleaned out. Just kind of press and manipulate and maneuver and take a look at your oval. See if you have any spots that, went a little crooked, or you want to adjust them before that glue completely sets up. But there we have it. Cording all the way around our oval. And our Create Everyday Punch Needle piece is now complete. Thanks for joining me. The Create Everyday pieces, the oval, floss set, and finishing pieces are available in our shop, and then the pattern is located on Teresa Koget's Etsy shop. All of these are linked in the description box below.